Hello everyone, and welcome to this PentaBAR webinar. Thank you very much for attending this online event. The topic for today will be security related. As you may observe, until now PentaBARs were mostly focused on development, on DevOps, architecture, things of the nature. And now we are glad to introduce you to the first security topic of PentaBAR. Let me share my screen. 1 second. Perfect. So the topic for today would be hacking poorly written code, and we'll have a live presentation. So this subject will be presented to you in a live practical way, and we'll work through the methods attackers are using to take leverage of poorly written code and of insecure project practices in order to ultimately gain access to project resources, to systems within your organization, and much more. Today, I'm here with Gabi, and we will have this presentation split in 2 parts. Firstly, we'll showcase how attackers are leveraging OSINT techniques in order to find those entry points, those poorly written code applications, software, and then Gabi will show you how they are exploiting them through a very interesting method that is pretty new, basically through server-side template injection attacks, which is not so common and can be found in a lot of programming languages, Python, PHP, Java, and so on and so forth. We have multiple steps that we will follow. So firstly, we'll take leverage of the tools that you can find online. Anybody can use those techniques in order to find the online presence of the organization, of the project that you are targeting. Then collecting the findings from the OSINT investigation, then trying to exploit those findings. A finding, we can refer to it as a secure project practice, whatever that may be, credentials stored somewhere on a GitHub, or maybe some certificates cached in Google searches, or some documents that are insecurely transferred over the internet. And we take leverage of one such poor project practice in order to get access to a restricted application owned by the company that we are targeting. And then Gabi will show you how to take leverage of the server-side template injection vulnerability, and ultimately gaining remote code access to the software, to the application. So firstly, what we'll do, and let me introduce you to a very interesting tool, DNS Twist. What is this tool? So this is an open source tool that you can insert your domain into it, and it will search internet for registered domains that are very similar to your domain that you inserted here. For example, we can insert pentalog.com, and let's see what it can find. as you can see, it found a lot of domains. So what is this tool used for? Basically, it has two practical approaches. One approach would be to find phishing domains that are similar to your organization domain. And another approach is to map your online presence. Maybe your organization just forgot a domain on the internet, and on that domain, it is hosting a very, very old application, maybe a misconfigured protocol. And this tool can find similar domains that may or may not be owned by your company. So as you can see, it found a lot of domains, and starting from the domain that we insert here, it does a lot of operations in order to find those domains. For example, it adds some dictionary words, appending some dictionary words, replace some characters within the input domain, top level domain swap, change the top level domain, transposition, and a lot more. But for the purpose of this exercise, we will take this one. So pen-talog.com, which seems pretty interesting. Okay, copying it. After selecting our target, we must confirm that this target is owned by the company that we are assessing. So for this purpose, we can use a tool like PUIU, which will interrogate registrants' databases in order to find records about the domain. So here, as you can see, it found multiple records, and it suggests that our domain is actually owned by Pentalog Group. You can see here the organization registrant is Pentalog. The registrant name is also admin Pentalog, admin support from Pentalog, the address, and so on. So far we have a domain. Next, our next step, 1 second, would be to check the records of this domain. So for that purpose, we can use a tool like DNS lookup, which is also an internet available tool that we can for this purpose. So all the tools presented here can be used for everybody. So everyone can use those tools. So let's insert here pen-talog.com, and let's do a lookup search on it. Okay, we found multiple records. It seems that this domain is also under a firewall, specifically a web application firewall, but that's not a problem. We will see how usually those firewalls are misconfigured in order to leak the IP address of the real domain. But for now, let's use a technique in order to find presence of this domain on public repositories. So for that purpose, we can use GitHub. GitHub is a very, very powerful tool when it comes to open source intelligence investigations, because we can find here credentials that are leaked by developers, by project members, or we can find internal endpoints that will help us as attackers to craft more targeted and more specific attacks against the application, against the project, against the software. So a lot of information disclosure can be found on GitHub. And we can enter our domain here, just like this. And it will search through all the GitHub. And unfortunately, we don't have anything here, but that's a catch. Because GitHub is split into two components. So we have GitHub, the normal GitHub platform, which stores repositories, Wikipedias, a lot of things. And we have the feature of GitHub called GISTs. You can access this one either by, let me put it here, going to your profile and navigating to your GISTs, or directly through the URL gist.github.com. And let me, okay, 1 second. Let's take a look. As you can see, people here share like codes, scripts, usually automation scripts, or just files. I know a lot of people that uses GISTs, just GISTs feature from GitHub, just to transfer code from one computer to another computer through the internet. So a lot of people use it like a copy-paste platform. So if you search on GitHub like a string, the results will not include GISTs. So if you want to search only for GISTs, you must specifically search on this page. So let's try searching for our domain on this page. And it returned a GIST. As you can see, it looks like some SQL commands executed. So let's see more. It seems that it is creating a user within an SQL database, MySQL database. So let's save those credentials, db user and password 123. And it is related to pen-talog.com. So let's try to find if we have any open ports on this domain. For this purpose, we can use any open port checker from the internet. You can find them online on Google. So again, all the tools here presented can be used by anybody, non-technical, technical people, in order to do external attack surface and OSINT investigation on their project, on organization, and things of that nature. So let's insert here pen-talog.com and we'll choose for the port number, we'll choose the default port for MySQL. So 3306. And we wait for it to load. And it seems that port 3306 is closed on our domain. But if you remember, we checked the records of the domain that we are targeting, and it seems it's hosted on Cloudflare, which is mostly used as a web application firewall and the proxy. So let's see if the real IP address is somehow leaked into the records of the domain. Why should we check for this misconfiguration? Because maybe at Cloudflare level, at the web application firewall level, the port is closed. But if you try to hit the original IP address behind the firewall, you may have some surprise. So let's scroll through those records. And here we have a TXT record. And it seems that we have an IP address. Let's copy it. And let's try checking this one for the port. And we have an open port of MySQL on this IP address. Let's try to use our credentials for this one. Here we'll use a MySQL client. Okay, and here we are inside the database. And it seems that we have a web app here. Let's see what it has. Prod financial files, users access. Let's try to see the users. And we need to see the users. Okay, it seems that the database contains some values for users. Let's see how or where can we use those users. The database suggests us that there is a web application on this domain, on this port. So let's confirm pentalog.com. Yes, indeed it is. We have a login page here. So let's try copying the passwords. Those are hashes. So it seems like they are MD5 hashes. And again, we can use an online tool to crack those hashes to find their plain text values. CrackStation, it is online and contains one of the largest database of passwords and hashes. And yes, it confirms that the hashes are MD5, which is a known insecure algorithm for storing passwords in database. And we have here also the password in plain text. Let's paste it and see the equivalent in email. 1C8. 1C8. Okay. We'll try with the username Samuel.Jonathan. Okay. And the password. And it seems that we successfully got access to the application only using open source intelligence investigation, taking leverage of bad project practices, actually disclosing credentials on GitHub. And here we are. Gabi?
Hello, Christy. I will take over your screen now. So we can continue with our demonstration. Just a second, let me share my screen. Okay. So basically right now, we know we have an application, we have the user. So the next step, it would be to exploit it further and try to get access to the server, because basically at this point we only have access to the application. It looks like an internal application, but we have to find a way to exploit it further in order to get access and be able to use and inject commands into the system. So also I will use more the PowerPoint and also real action, because it's easier for me to explain it. So before we start testing the application, we should play with it. We should understand the business logic. And for our cases here, this is a fake application. It's created with a boilerplate, so it's not a real one. But we'll skip over that part. We don't have any business logic. We only have this sign-in functionality and that dashboard that you already saw on Christie's screen. So further, we will try to identify what kind of software the developer used to create this application and what version it is. So the first thing that we should check are headers, cookies, even the page source. I will make it simple for you because you don't have time to get through all of them. So we are going to get straight to the cookies. And in the cookies, I'm not logged in, so I'm not logged in the application. So this is just the login page. So this is the cookie that I have. This cookie looks very familiar for you, maybe. If not, I'm going to explain to you what it is. It is JWT. It is a JSON web token. Sorry. This is how it looks. It basically it is used to digital sign or with a secret key or public key to verify and trust different applications. So we know we can decode it, as you can see in this screen. So the most simplest thing we can do is go to gat.io. We can paste here the token, and we can see, of course, we cannot see the data because it's encrypted, but we can see the header. And in the header, we see some very interesting stuff. We see a CSRF token, and we see this fresh variable that is false. So I will do just a very simple thing. I will take this, put it on Google, and try to see if somebody used it. I think you are all agree that this looks like Flask, because I think the first 5 links we already see Flask in the title. For those who don't know, so yeah, this is our JET. We decoded it, we saw it. So for those who don't know, Flask is a web framework that is used with Python. You can find more about this on Python Basics. I'm not going to deep dive because we don't have that much time, but at this point, we have the first clue that the application was written in Python using Flask. So we continue the testing. And while we continue the testing, if I will log into the application, because I could not find anything else without being logged in, after I log into the application, I start to play with it. And the most interesting thing is the search. You can put plenty of input here. You can try to find the cross-site scripting. You can try to find the escalate injection. They're not working. But I tried multiple search strings. And when I tried this one, you can see here, I get this very interesting error. I get this error and it says Jinja 2. So I will just go on Google, Jinja 2. What is Jinja 2? Jinja 2 is engine for Python. It's a template builder, template engine for Python. So at this point, I confirmed it's a Python. we know it's using Flask, and we are using Jinja 2 as a template builder. The next thing that I should do right now, it's get back on the Google, Jinja 2 vulnerabilities. This is the most simplest thing that I can do. Just use the Google. And here on the cvdetails.com, I see all the CVs that include Jinja 2 or are set. The vendor is set to be Jinja 2, and I see one in 2019. It has a 7.5 score, so it could be really interesting. And we see here a server-side template injection. What exactly is a server-side template injection? It's I think this picture is a picture with that explains better than any kind of definition. Yeah, you can find on Hatrix. I put the link here if you want to deep dive on that subject. You can find what it means. But basically, when you render a template, the input that you put, it automatically translates to code, and the evaluator, when you compile or when you build it, will render it as a command. So for example, 9 cross 9 will give you 81. And I also put here an example so you can understand it better. If we will try this in our application, and we are going to try it later, you are going to see that it works. In the left side, you can see how the template looks. Yeah, so basically you are putting dynamic code inside an HTML for your template, sorry. And in the right part, you see how it works in our application. And don't trust me, I will show you again. Let's try. That one. Okay. And we get 49. So we get actually the result out of that. So yeah, this could be possible. This CV could be possible to be a valid vulnerability in our application. So how exactly does this work? I want to deep dive just a bit on this part, because I wanted to understand how is the code behind that. So this is our template, yeah. And in the left side is the code that it's actually running in this application. So as a hacker, I'm not supposed to see this part, but for you, in order to understand it better, I put here a snippet of the code. So this is our search function, yeah. It's Python code. We have our parameter query here, the thing we search. And we have this search query variable that is rendered with a query variable. So basically, in order to display back the thing that we searched, we use these functions from Python, render template and render template string. Both of them can be exploited, but we're going to find that in a few minutes. Now, in order to be able to exploit this vulnerability, this possible vulnerability at this point, we need to understand a few things about Python. In Python, everything is an object. And here I have a very simple example. So if we have a string, yeah, we have this Pentalog word here as a string. We can navigate somehow, and we can move from one object to another object. If we put this part here after pentalog.class, we can access the Pentalog string parent class. If we put base, we can access the base of that class. And if we go back to class, and if we go back to the base, and then go to all subclasses, we actually can get all available subclasses. So we will see all the functions that are available, and in order to be able to use them, we need to access them not by name but by index, by their count. So I will try to start with a very simple and most recommended payloads that you can check. So if I put this one here, config.items, I will retrieve a lot of things, a lot of interesting things. But I will not stop here. But here you can find variables, you can find maybe passwords, depends. You can find things, information about the session cookie, a lot of interesting things. But I'm not going to stop here. Go back to the presentation. So in order to be able to execute a command, because going back to my objective now is to be able to run a command on the server to get to the internal network. I will use the MRO, method resolution order in Python. I'm not going to bore you with this stuff. The most important thing is that you can jump from one class to another class in order to find one that can be used in order to run a command on the server. In our cases, if we use this MRO method resolution order in Python, we need to find the popen subprocess. The popen subprocess has an argument, you can see here, call process subprocess.popen. We can use it with an argument that is actually executing code, Linux code on the server. For example, here we are listing the current directory. Yeah, shell true. It just works. So we don't really need to understand why and how. So we know that we have to get to this subclass to first find if popen, yeah, if it is included in our application, because maybe the developer didn't use it, and after that try to use this possible point of injection. So what we are going to do is to take this payload. As I said earlier, it should retrieve all classes that are loaded. I'm going to put it here. Wait, because when I copy, yeah, I have to change this because PowerPoint changes the code of them. Okay, and we retrieved a bunch of stuff. So in order to clear this, I'll be old school and I will not use any automated tools. I will just use Google tools. I will take this. Okay, I will copy it. I will go to HTML decode. Wow, looks so much better now. I will take it and I will paste it in a Notepad++. And I have something like this. So this is basically, we can see it's an array of classes, yeah, of object classes. I will take this signal and I will put a new line for all of them. Okay, so I'm starting the first line. It's actually the index 0. So right now, let's try to find popen. I have the popen process, so it's loaded in my application, so I can use it. And it's on 229 minus 1, so 228. So I can use the index 228 in order to access the popen class. So going back to the application. Going back to the application, I can go back here, back up. And as I showed to you before, I have this payload here that I used before. Yeah, so class, MRO, subclasses, it printed me all the subclasses. So what I'm going to do next, I will power up my my VPS here, and I will listen on port 4444. And I will try to use this one, this payload that I'm going to explain, to get a reverse shell. So basically to get access to my server that I just opened. So I'm using the process that I showed to you, and I'm opening a netcat that is connecting and giving shell access to that. But before I run that, I think I skipped one of this. That's not an issue. Yeah, so we're going to exploit it. And hopefully we will receive it on this part. And after we connect to this server, we will get a reverse shell on our server. So I will just run it, search. And as you can see, we have a connection received on IP and the IP that the application is running. So hopefully right now I will be able to type a command and we have access. You can see we have access to the server. Who am I? I'm root, so I can do actually whatever I want. Print working directory, I'm in home, flask admin, flask black dashboard. So basically at this point, I can proceed and I can exploit. I am inside the network, so I can exploit the network as I want. I can continue and scan the entire network and everything. One thing that I forgot I think I skipped, I don't think, I'm sure I skipped one. I had also this command before we found out about popen. This command basically would open a file from the server and it would read the content, and this one works without the popen. So this is a built-in function that reads the file from the system. But going back from what we got now, we can do whatever we want. So basically this was it. Now we can do whatever we want. We can scan the entire network. We can find other vulnerabilities on other machine. We can expand. We can move laterally. We can do whatever we want. Okay. We are going to give you a few tips and advice how to avoid this and how to avoid this kind of scenario. The first one is, of course, don't use default passwords. As we saw, Christy found a DB user with password 123. That's of course not a secure password. Also, he already mentioned the MD5 that it's not good anymore, so don't use it. And don't use it
here,
with
please.
Yeah, sure, go on.
Yes, and even if you use password policies, even if you use strong complexity password policies, be aware that there are some password combinations like the one I'm pasting right now on the chat. So the password follows common password policy, most of the common complexity policies, 8 characters, minimum 1 symbol, minimum 1 digit, minimum 1 uppercase. But if you search for this password, it's breached. So it's very easily guessable. Besides password policies, you also have some checks for common passwords, even if they are following the password policy.
Also, we have, I think I have a question about the GWT token. So the token was in the application. I think I can show it to you again very fast. So basically, let me go to application. If I log out, it is in the cookies part. Wait. Application, cookies, so it's right here. I hope that will answer your question.
I think we have also another question regarding GitHub part. So on GitHub, they have a fairly well-established system. When you upload code to the site, it notifies you if you have left passwords or compromising data. So I assume it's hard to find exploits, right? Not really. So for example, for our script, when we uploaded it, there was no check in place. And sometimes GitHub discovers those leaks, those hard-coded credentials, sometimes not. And I prepared also a very interesting search to show you. 1 second. I'll take over the screen just to share this, just to this search is also very interesting. For example, here we can search for RSA private keys, mostly used for SSH logins. And as you can see, GitHub is full of them. I mean, it's very RSA.private. It's full of those things, pk.rsa. So sometimes it detects, sometimes not. But we should not rely on the platform to enforce the good practices that we should follow when developing an app or when doing DevOps. We should have a guideline with specific secure practices that we should follow and practices that we should avoid. For example, GitHub, posting code on GitHub. We also had an OSINT investigation some months ago, and we discovered some documents related to some projects, old projects on GitHub, like metrics, things of that nature. So please avoid doing it, because not only puts the organization in danger, but also you as a personal, it can have legal consequences later. For example, if after 2 years somebody discovers that that document was leaked on GitHub PUIU, there may be a legal impact regarding it. And on the misconfiguration part, try to follow when you implement a web application firewall, when you implement a firewall, try to follow the guidelines provided by the vendor in order to avoid any misconfigurations, like this one where we discovered the original IP address behind the firewall. And also, besides that, it is recommended to have a list with assets that are belonging to your project. Once you do not need anymore an asset, bring it offline from the internet. Just do not leave it there, like a domain or a service or something like this. Once you do not use it, try to limit your exposure as much as possible.
Yep, and the SPF record that you found on the DNS, it's a pretty common misconfiguration when it comes to Cloudflare. So everybody puts everything under the cloud, but they forget about the SPF and the DMARC. So you always get the IP. Also, if you, after the presentation, if you would be kind and provide us the feedback, you have here a QR code. You can use it to get to the form where you can provide feedback for us, so we can get better at this presentation and come back with another one on the security topic. Also, if you have any more questions, feel free to use the QA section or the chat.
Yes, we have one more. Can you please share the name of the software tool that you use to access the databases? It is Heidi SQL. I'll paste the link here. Okay. Okay, 2 more questions. What techniques do you use to avoid honeypots?
I think we just made it for the education purposes, so we will not provide any kind of information about how to avoid honeypots. This was an isolated case. It was a special environment that was crafted for this for this PentaBAR. So no honeypot involved.
Yes, okay. If it's done to someone, let's say hacker, you could be discovered and charged for illegal breach, and some applications could notify that someone logged in. Which of today's commands expose you?
I think you can be exposed by the queries that you typed. They can prompt pop out on the WAF if you have a WAF. Also the logs, after you get the reverse shell, you get tons of logs of the traffic and what data you are extracting. So a lot of logs that needs to be deleted in order to clear your steps.
Especially that you did the reverse shell through clear text, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Also, one more question. So as one more security layer, is it recommended to avoid running application on the server as a root user? Definitely, this was the worst misconfiguration on this presentation. If you don't have, for example, let's say that it was another user that was running the application. From that point, in order to get to the root, it's another entire phase. You have to get to the privilege escalation. And that could be very complicated, and if the server is hardened enough, it could be in most of the cases impossible. So yeah, that was the worst misconfiguration on that on this application.
Yes, and as a case study, we had a lot of penetration testing engagements that we managed to get command execution on the server behind the applications, and we noticed that they were running root as root. What you can do from there, you can easily, firstly, maintain persistence, and secondly, you can perform lateral movement to other systems, because you can install your own tools on the system, you can do proxying on your attacker machine, and a lot of techniques. So running as root is a very, very bad idea.
It's actually the worst idea
Yes.
when you run an application. Yeah. So again, please, if you have time, to get to the website, to the form behind this QR code to provide us feedback, we'd be glad. Maybe next year we will have the second security PentaBAR, hopefully with another subject that could interest you. So okay, so if you don't have any more questions, thank you for your time. We hope that we provided you some useful or new information. If you have any kind of questions about security or about this presentation, feel free to contact both of us. We will be more than glad to help you and answer your questions. Oh, we just received a few more questions.
Is GIST so used by hackers to check weak passwords? Yes, it's very used to check disclosed passwords that they can reuse in applications or log in on remote systems. What are the most common data breaches you saw in your projects?
I think we are not allowed to provide you this information.
we can say something generic, basically. Records, database records, usernames and passwords records, email accounts, private keys.
I think Chris's connection just dropped. Yeah, too much information. The network could not handle it. Okay, so we have two more questions. One of them, can you tell more about the VPS? About the VPS we used, or VPS in the term in general. The VPS we used, again, it was isolated one used only for this PentaBAR, so it was just running that Python application, nothing more on that. Can you mention something else than GIST? Sorry, Mihai, Christy just left, so you can go to LinkedIn, copy this link and ask him directly, because he is not online anymore. And one more, oh, Christy is back, and we have a few more minutes.
Sorry.
Christy, you have a question about the GIST. This is the last one, if you can answer to it.
Can you mention something else than GIST? Yes, paste beans, Google cached pages, Scribd, where a lot of people post documents there, GitLab.
Online notepad applications. We all know those kind of applications that we use, and we should not use them anymore, but they can be read by anyone on the internet, so plenty of them. Okay. Any automation for searching in GIST, Christy? I think he dropped again. So again, you can ask him more questions. Oh, he's back.
Yes. Any automation for searching in GISTs? No, they are blocking. They have good rate limiting, so you must do it manually.
Okay. Again, thank you all for your time. This was it. Again, thank you for the time. Please, if you have 1 minute to complete the feedback again, and we wish you good evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
See you.
Thank you.
Bye bye.